Thanks for tuning in to more pro football talk on the Our Lads Football Network. Last week it was the NFC. This week it's the AFC. And then next week we're going to have our prediction show. We're going to go over and update all the Super Bowl futures, go division by division with our predictions, including, of course, the playoffs and a bunch of other interesting, maybe some props that we did last year, sleepers and so forth. So that's coming up next week. But this week, the AFC, Ryan Dunleavy, of course, joining me. And Ryan, I guess it's good timing that we're doing this show, the AFC this week, because there's a little bit more noise happening in the AFC, especially after, the Cam Newton news, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But I figured before we get into all that news, let's start where we should start, and that is with the defending champs in the West, the Kansas City Chiefs. And the offensive line will be completely new. Kyle Long is still banged up and out. So Niang looks like he's penciled in as the starter for now. Do you think they did enough on the offensive line to get back and win a championship?
I love what they did, Greg, on the offensive line. I think this is what makes, they have Mahomes. But other than that, this is what makes the Chiefs the Chiefs. This is what makes their front office their front office. Most teams, I believe, would have sat back and said, okay, well, we got killed in the Super Bowl because Mitchell Schwartz wasn't healthy and Eric Fisher wasn't healthy and Laurent Duvernay Tardif was opted out to be a hero of the world. So all those guys will be back next year and we'll just run it back healthy. And they said, no, that's not good enough. We need to actually upgrade. They have 2 new tackles. Tardif is now a backup because they got new guards. I mean, they wiped the slate totally clean, which after 2 AFC championships in a row is not an easy thing to do. The easy thing to do is say, injuries got us, but we're really good. They said, no, really good's not enough. We need to be great, and wipe the whole slate clean. I love what they did.
Yeah, and this is the defense as well is going to be, look, they couldn't win a championship without the defense a couple of years ago, and the defense, again, looks like it's going to be very dangerous. I love the move to pick up Jaron Reed. It's such an underrated move. Going along with Chris Jones and Frank Clark on the front lines. That is going to be huge. They've drafted some speedy linebackers over the last couple of years because the linebacking has been terrible really for them. They've got nothing out of it. So they draft Willie Gay and Nick Bolton. So that should only help them out. And we know the secondary's got one of those leaders in Ty Matthew. I'm a big L'Jarius Sneed fan. I think he's ready to break out, just like Juan Thornhill. So they're a complete team. That's what makes them so good. It's just not always relying every week on Patrick Mahomes, even though it appears that way.
Correct, yeah. No, I mean, look, they're a really deep offense. They have playmakers under Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu. I don't think anybody's going to confuse them with the top 5 defense. But they have playmakers on defense, and they have a really good offense, a really good offensive line, and the best quarterback. One thing I will say, he hasn't been great, but I do think losing Sammy Watkins is hurtful because you have Tyreek Hill, of course, and Travis Kelce, of course, maybe the 2 best receiving combo. I know Kelce's a tight end, but the best pass-catching duo in the NFL, Greg. But after that, you're asking DeMarcus Robinson and Mecole Hardman to be like steady number 2, 3 receivers. Well, those guys are more gadget, big play threats than they are every down, make a 12-yard catch on a 3rd and 7 kind of thing. So if I'm being super nitpicky, that's what I would say worries me about the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the good thing though is that Hardman is and they're hoping, of course, that he's ready to take that next step and almost be like Tyreek Hill. That if they have those 2 dynamic weapons, it's just going to open everything up, including the running game. But I agree. And maybe they're not done. Maybe they do. And I'm sure they realize it. Maybe if there's one more thing that they could fill in, and it shouldn't be very difficult. These players, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, and you could just find a guy like a Scotty Miller, the way the Bucs have, those guys are out there. So maybe he'll find one, but maybe they also believe that they have that guy already in Travis Kelce, something that a lot of other teams don't have. All right, the Denver. Oh, by the way, I was surprised they cut Powell. I was very surprised that he didn't make the team. There was a lot of expectation that the kid from Clemson was going to be somebody to keep an eye on and look out. Especially with Patrick Mahomes. But you never know. Didn't have a good camp. Maybe he'll be on the practice squad. Do you think McKinnon's got anything left in the tank?
Probably not, but I mean McCoy didn't, and it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't
I hope
really
not.
matter. Edwards-Helaire is their running back. The running back is like their 12th most important player.
Yeah, unless you're a Chief fan, I hope not. I hope he doesn't have a breakout kind of season. That I have one more good season left in me. All right, the Denver Broncos. As we go back alphabetically to the West, and with Bridgewater, the quarterback, that's not really a surprise because even though Drew Lock seemed to have a good preseason, the fact is Bridgewater, they spent money to bring Bridgewater over here for a reason. And they've got a really good defense. Fangio's defensive-minded, obviously. So what I'm going to be intrigued with, though, is eventually, maybe it's as early as next year, maybe it's Drew Lock or another quarterback. I don't know. Maybe it's Deshaun Watson. But they have so many weapons on offense that Teddy Bridgewater, man, this is going to be the best opportunity he's ever had to prove whether or not he's starting really legitimately starting caliber quarterback for a winning team.
Exactly. This is a team, honestly, it's like not that much unlike their week one opponent, the Giants. A top 10 defense. Actually, the Broncos might be top 5 defense, but a top defense and skill position players with a shaky quarterback and a shaky offensive line. So it's really not that much different than the Giants, and that's what the Broncos are. I mean, they have, a defense that could go to the playoffs. They have skill players who are worthy of going to the playoffs, and you just don't know anything about how that offensive line is going to hold up. Obviously, the Jawan James injury and release weakened their offensive line and kind of shook their locker room. And then Teddy Bridgewater, like you said, I mean, he had a really good year, catastrophic injuries ago, whatever that was, 2015, 16. This is his 5th team in 5 years. If teams were believing in you, you wouldn't be on your 5th team in 5 years.
Oh, by the way, what do you think the Chiefs are to win the Super Bowl? Odds. Remember, Tampa Bay was 7-1, and that was the high in the NFC.
5-2.
Higher than that, 4-1.
Yeah.
So that's about right. And Denver, what do you think they are?
60-1.
50-1. Let's keep an eye also on Von Miller, who's back after the injury. What does he have left in his tank after the injury? Does that slow him down? Because they really can't afford that to happen. But we'll see. A competitive team, definitely. I think a borderline playoff team, and at 50-1, one of the long shots that I would look at personally. Okay, now Las Vegas, and what I really like about Las Vegas this year, and I'm happy for them and their fans that they actually get to fill that stadium up. After last year, and you're having a football team come to town, and it's both these teams we're talking about next, the Chargers and the Raiders, not having to play in front of not being able to play in front of their home crowd. But the Raiders are interesting. John Gruden, things haven't worked out so far. But the talent on offense is all about the offensive line. It's especially the right side, the center to the right side of the line is one big question mark for this team. And really the entire offensive line in general. Derek Carr had a pretty good season last year. I think the running game is better with Drake along with Jacobs. And the receivers, I think, are all ready to break out, both Ruggs and Edwards. And of course, they have Waller at tight end. So I don't think offense is going to be the problem as long as the offensive line does halfway decent of a job. It's going to be that defense, which has been pretty bad the last few years.
I'll start the same way you did. What I like about Las Vegas is the casinos and the steakhouses.
How about the hockey team?
There's nothing I like about the Raiders. I think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. Yannick Ngakwe, I think, fills a need for them. They haven't had a pass rusher really since they traded Khalil Mack, but I think Derek Carr has kind of plateaued as what he is. Uh, I don't get the sense that, I mean, look, every year they pick a guy in the first round and he doesn't live up to his potential because they reach for him. I don't really like anything the Raiders are doing. I think their offensive line is super shaky. I think they lost 3 starters off the offensive line. I really don't like much about the Raiders, to be honest with you. I think you're looking at a 5-win team, six maybe.
Well, that's not terrible.
That,
Yeah, that's not the worst team in the league. Bad. So
no, I said one of the worst teams. Well, if you go 5-12, you're picking 5th in the draft.
Well, I actually look. To me, it's definitely all about the offensive line. I think the defense is going to be better because it can't be worse. I think they've done talent-wise, Mo Rig, I'm a big fan of. They brought him in. I think the secondary will be better. They got to keep Abram healthy. That's important. Mullins, another year as a corner. I think he's got upside. And like you said, look, Ngakoue, we have no idea whether or not he's going to be a big help. They've got some other players up front, including Farrell. He needs to live up to that first-round billing. He's a good player, but not where they drafted him, like you said. He was also a little bit of a reach. There's talent on this team. I think they could be a 500 team. That's about it. All right.
I'll take that bet.
Okay.
What are they to win the Super Bowl? 100-1?
80-1.
Yeah, I'll take that bet on 500.
Okay, let's now talk about the Chargers.
And I love this team.
Okay, and the Chargers with a new coaching staff and a quarterback that is looking like the real deal after last year. My question is the running game because of Eckler. They're asking him to be the number 1 back. I don't think that's really – I think he's more of a complimentary piece. But, okay, we'll see if Joshua Kelly can have, a breakout because he didn't really – the whole running game was just not good last year. And a lot of it had to do with the offensive line. That now appears to be fixed a little bit when you bring in Corey Linsley, which was a great signing. We talked about that. They drafted Slater. They've got Bulaga. So the offensive line should be better. And the offense should be fine. It's going to be the defense with the Chargers. I just don't think the Chargers have been scary good on defense for a while now. And, it's like Joey Bosa. They got to keep these guys healthy. That's also been a problem. Derwin James is a great player, but he hasn't been healthy. So, look, there's talent on the team. They've got a bunch of first-round picks on that defense. It's about time they all step up, and maybe because Staley's there, they will this time.
I think you took the words out of my mouth. They're going back to, like, Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson, like, not playing in playoff games because they were injured. This is, to me, the most snake-bitten injury franchise in the NFL for the last 15 years. Me, if they can stay healthy, I think they're an 11-win team. And everything you said is right, but I think the number one thing you said is injuries. This team, to me, has had more seasons derailed by injuries than any other team I can think of. Derwin James is a great player if he can stay healthy. And then obviously they have, look, for the next 12 years in the AFC, you have no chance to compete with the Chiefs unless you have a great young quarterback. That's why it looks like Chiefs Bills is going to be the future. The Chargers have another. He's not Mahomes, but they have a great young quarterback, so they have a chance every year.
Yeah, and it's also important that Kenneth Murray steps up on defense, and they also need a little bit more pass rush, which, again, with Ingram gone, we have to find out where that comes from. And I think Asante Samuel is a big part of everything they're doing, too, because they need that other corner. They really don't have a number 1 corner besides Chris Harris, and he's kind of getting up there in age. So, all right. Chargers, what are they to win the Super Bowl?
50-1?
30-1.
No, probably better. 30-1.
Yeah, 30-1. So they are the second choice in the division. Denver and then the Raiders. Okay, let's go to the South, and we will start, first of all, in the South. What do we start with here? We go with Colts. And the Indianapolis Colts. Talk about injuries. Actually, we start with Houston. We don't need to take a lot of time on Houston.
I got nothing to say on Houston.
Yeah.
Here's what I got to say on Houston. I actually respect that they're not taking, that they're playing this game of chicken with the NFL, and it's like, okay, well, if you're not going to suspend him, we're not going to play him, and we're just going to leave him on our practice squad. We're not going to take less value for Deshaun Watson. That the whole season really is about what they do with Deshaun Watson. They're a 1 or 2 win team. All those bad trades they've made, they really haven't gotten much for. Clowney's not there anymore. Hopkins isn't there anymore. Watt's not there anymore, and they didn't get enough return. So really, this is a team. This is almost like an expansion team to me. They did sign something like 15 guys for contracts worth more than $2.5 million. So they're turning over the roster. They should have a new starting lineup. But really, the whole season is about they're probably the favorites to get the number 1 pick in the draft. And do they need a quarterback because they've traded or Watson has been suspended? The longer this goes on, that's really all that hangs over that.
Well,
team.
what do you say hardball? Then what do you think they should be agreeing to?
I think they should be until the case is settled. They shouldn't back off what they want. 3 first-round picks and some second-round picks. Until the case is settled, that's the asking price.
And what if the case isn't settled for a few years?
Keep them.
So okay.
Keep them.
But then what happens?
In
a couple of years, the value is definitely going to start going down.
Then I guess that's up to him, right? I guess that's up to him to, if he wants to play football, I guess that's up to him to say, I'll expand my trade list. Won't just be these 2 teams anymore. I'll go anywhere.
Oh, that definitely,
I'll get back some salary.
Yes. That has to change. Correct. No doubt. It can't be about where he wants to go. As far as compensation, though, look, if somebody told them today, we'll give you a second round draft, we'll give you 2 first-round draft picks and a second round and a couple other things, and they don't take it, I think they're wrong. I'm sorry. They're just take that. That's nothing wrong with that compensation. Move on from the headache and move. And I just don't know if a team would give that up at this point.
But it just feels wrong even to be talking about football. It just even feels wrong. It feels wrong to talk about. I know it's a football podcast, but to me, it's all about the case. It's all about getting settled. It's all about finding out what the settlement is, how it goes, who admits wrong, how much money. That to me, it's all about that. I don't even really want to talk about football with Deshaun Watson. I want to know where that case is settled and who has to, what comes after the settlement, what he says in his defense when he finally has to speak.
All right, next up, the Colts, and they have been hit by COVID. Boy, they really needed that, especially Wentz, who is looking like he was ready to start coming back until the COVID hit. So this is just going to be a team that more than likely they get off to a slower start, and then we'll see. We won't really know about the true Colts until probably mid-season. But the talent is there. There's just Balor's done a great job putting talent. Even the defense is as good. I mean, Kwity Paye is going to be a monster. You talk about rookie of the year. I think Kwity Paye could actually beat Parsons out if I had a vote today.
You mean that picking your number 4 wide receiver like the Giants did over Kwity Paye wasn't like a great idea?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
No.
That's
Yeah.
weird.
I don't know. Yeah, well, maybe if Alajari wins Defensive Player of the Year, I guess they don't have to worry about it.
Then it was
yes,
brilliant.
Then that's, yeah. But yeah, so I think the talent's there, and when Wentz comes back, we have to find out how quickly he clicks with Frank Reich again. I think this is going to be a dangerous team later in the year, but early in the season, they just can't get behind too much. If they do, I don't even know if Jacobs have they named a quarterback yet.
I don't think
they have.
So, no.
No.
I think they're hoping it's Wentz.
Maybe.
So,
yeah.
I think Sports Illustrated had them 0-6 and then making the playoffs.
That's just ridiculous.
Which is and then And then the column I read in the Indy Star yesterday was so good, I have to shout it out. Google it if you haven't. The headline is something like Carson Wentz is selfish and Philly was right about him. So it was just they teed off on the Colts for their vaccination status. It was an excellent, excellent column. Whether you agree with it or not, a columnist is supposed to have an opinion, and that had an opinion.
Okay.
No, I totally agree, though. I think the Colts are a bad team early, a good team late. The question is, did they tread water for the first 6 weeks? So if they're 3-3, they can make a run. If they're 0-6, it seems unlikely.
Next up is Jacksonville. And the Jags turning everything over to Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be a long year. I just don't think that, it's interesting that.
I don't agree with that. I got to cut you off. A long year in Jacksonville is 1-15, 2-14. They know what a long year looks like. I think this is like a 6-11 team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think they're actually on par with the Raiders?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
I think it's going to be what I need to see though is when everybody's healthy and starting week 1 on the offensive line. I want to see that unit out there, and then we'll find out just what kind of protection Trevor Lawrence gets. Because with the backups, he was running for his life. It was hard to grade him in the preseason. So that's what I need to see first. If he gets protection, I can see that happening. If he doesn't, then I'd say more like 4, 5 wins at the most, which after you win one game 1 year, I guess that's a major step in the right direction. Which, by the way, the franchise is. You hired Urban Meyer. You did a great job.
Yeah, look, I think they're 5 or 6 wins. The cool thing in the NFL right now is to kill Urban Meyer for everything he does. I guess it's because he's not one of them, but I don't know. I can't see. The way I've been putting it is, if Urban Meyer survives this season, if he doesn't just say, this is too much, I quit, I hate this, which we know he can do. If he survives this season, Jacksonville will be one of the best teams in the AFC in 3 years.
Absolutely. So I agree with that completely. It's going to take a little time, but they'll get there. I was surprised, though. I mean, this just shows you, I guess Tavon Austin still has speed because somehow he made their team. So they got rid of Colin Johnson, a talent.
I mean, we know if you ever watched Ohio State or Florida play, we know Urban Meyer loves speed more than anything else. That is not a particularly fast.
And that's why that's why they went with Etienne too. They wanted more speed. Okay, we got a running back. That's okay. Etienne's faster than Robinson. Let's bring him in. But Etienne's gone for the year. Another reason why it's not going to all come into play this year. But there's a bright future for the Jags. No question about it. All right. Next up is Tennessee. By the way, Jacksonville odds.
Probably 200 to 1.
125 to 1. By the way, Colts odds.
Well, that's a good question. When are the odds from?
What do you mean from?
Like, are they today's odds or
which is a good time to take them too.
50 to 1?
No, not that much. 35.
That seems low.
I even think 35 is high, which I'm willing to grab.
I disagree because they're going to fall so far behind.
I don't agree. I don't see that. I think they're going to things are going to be slow, but I don't agree that they're going to be like 1-5 or 0-6.
I think they're 2 or 3 games worse than the Titans. So everything's on the road. If they make the playoffs, it's a tough road.
Okay, very nice. We disagree with that. Let's now talk about the Titans because this is a little bit of a new team. Their offensive coach is gone. They bring in Julio Jones. They also went with Bud Dupree. Their tight end situation looks ugly, but they sacrificed. They needed to get a little bit better on defense, so that's why they went after some of the defensive players that they did. But it's got to start clicking on defense sooner or later. They could run the ball the way they're running it. With Jones and Brown, they should be able to pass the ball, but they're going to be a playoff team again, more than likely, but championship team, that defense must step up.
Yeah. Concern for me is the secondary. I mean, Caleb Farley is an injury risk. That's why he slipped so far. He's kind of got some boomer bust to him. Janoris Jenkins, who I saw play up close and personal with the Giants for a long time, I'm surprised he has much left in the tank. The secondary scares me, and that's a bad place to be weak in today's NFL. I think the front seven is better than you do, especially as Bud Dupree gets healthier, excuse me. And I think the offense is really good. It's funny because my whole life I've thought of the Titans as defense first, right? Going back to like Javon Curse. I've thought of them as defense first. And the Titans are scary good offensively. I mean, you pick your poison. You want to double team A.J. Brown or Julio Jones? Okay, I'll just run it with Derrick Henry right down your throat. You want to put 8 in the box? Okay, I'll just throw the ball to the best receiving combo in the division. Like, to me, they are a scary, and Ryan Tannehill doesn't turn the ball over anymore. He never turns the ball over. So, to me, it's a scary good offensive team in a very weak division. I think they're probably inflated a little bit because they probably go 5-1 in the division, and they're, probably an 11-6 team, 12-5 maybe.
And their odds?
It sounds like I'm higher on them than some people. I would say they're probably 25-30-1.
20-1. And they're also hit by COVID. So Tannehill's out, and a bunch of other players out as well. So we'll see what that does, if anything. North, Baltimore, the Ravens. If there's a team in the AFC that might be a disappointment this year, it might be Baltimore. We'll see. I think it's boom or bust time for Greg Roman in this offense. You talked about Watkins. Well, he comes on board. They got now Bateman to go along with Brown. They also have some depth at receiver. So no, I don't want to hear anything else about they don't have any receivers. So they have enough receivers. He loves the Mark Andrews, his tight end. The Dobbins injury. So how much does this affect them? Gus Edwards gets more carries. So Jan Levine's going to be, I know he's already happy about that because he has Gus Edwards in our fantasy league. But I think they have to bring in someone else. They can't let Gus Edwards carry the ball 300 times. I don't see that happening, and I don't trust Justice Hill. The defense is always going to be strong, and then it's up to Lamar Jackson. So, and again, do they have the passing game this year? I don't know. We'll see.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I think that's it. They obviously made a strong effort to upgrade their wide receiver core with Rashad Bateman, who I think is a really good player, and Sammy Watkins. So they're trying to give Jackson weapons. So you appreciate that a team recognizes its flaw and does it. Look, they have one of the best offensive lines. They have one of the best defenses. They're going to the playoffs. It's a good division. I can't say for sure they're going to win the division. They're going to the playoffs, and they are, when they get there, it's going to be, can Lamar Jackson pass the ball, especially if they're playing in a cold weather city. Can he pass the ball? So they're what they are, 11-6, 12-5.
And I expect Patrick Queen will probably have a much bigger impact this year after having the rookie blues last year, and that'll be a big impact for them defensively. Odds to win
20,
14. So they are the third choice in the AFC, which is not bad if you like the Ravens.
I notice a trend here. I'm always a little over the odds.
Okay. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
All right, now come the Ohio teams, Cincinnati and Cleveland, starting with the Bengals. Joe Burrow, hopefully all signs point to him playing week 1, from what I've heard. That seems to be the case, right?
To be.
Yeah. Jamar Chase has had an awful preseason. So hopefully when Burrow gets out there, that'll change. Something's going on there with Chase. Look, the offensive line has been a disaster, and they used their draft picks on the offensive line this year, even though it wasn't a first rounder. So I got to hope that a lot of those draft picks, if not all of them, are playing, because they can't be throwing out, Suafilo and Quentin Spain. I mean, maybe even Trey Hopkins. I mean, come on, you have to upgrade this offensive line. The defense is good.
They just traded their 2018 first-round offensive lineman, Billy Price, to the Giants for B.J. Hill, a defensive lineman. So
I'm hoping the Giants. I hope the Giants didn't want B.J. Hill.
Yeah, I mean, so now the Giants are so that tells me the Bengals defensive line is pretty weak too. So look, Joe Burrow is a really good player. I like the idea that he's back with Jamar Chase. This is average to below average team that's just going to get waxed in its own division. It's going to probably go 0-6 in its own division. So probably not as bad a team as its final record is going to be, but they're going to get waxed by their division. They might go 4-13.
I don't think they're going to be, even though I see what you're saying, record-wise may not indicate how well they're playing. I think they're going to fare off better than, say, Jacksonville, record-wise. Because I think the defense is good. Hendrickson is going to help them out. They have an underrated secondary. It's about keeping Burrow healthy. That's all. They can keep Burrow healthy the entire season. I can see them being a 6-7 win team. What are the and by the way, the Osai injury was a blow. You know, he's out for the year. And so what is there a rule in the NFL that if you're not on the active roster by time you're a rookie and you get injured like this, and you get put on injured reserve, that you can't return? So that means Osai is out for the year.
It has nothing to do with being a rookie. You have to be on the 53-man roster to be eligible for short-term IR. So if you make the 53, then you can go on IR and come back after 3 weeks. But if you go on IR before the 53-man roster, you're out for the season.
Yeah, so basically he didn't get into that 53-man roster yet, and that's the reason why he is out. That's a big blow for them. He was going to be a big part of their pass rushing, so that's the way it is. I'm not going to feel sorry for them as a Jet fan. Cleveland. The Browns. So they broke through finally. By the way, the Bengals odds to win?
150 to 1.
You got it right on the nose. 150 to 1. Cleveland Browns are next. And so they broke through to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. Are they ready to take that next step? I say yes. We'll find out, though, when it comes to, are they in Kansas City again? Is it a championship game setting? What's the deal? But I expect that they're going to have another good season, and they are going to be a true Super Bowl contender.
I'll take that to the next degree. They are my AFC champion. Something I never thought I would say in my whole life. I'm picking the Browns to go to the Super Bowl.
Oh! I like it.
I will say the one thing that worries me is because they're in such a good division, they're going to lose some games. So they're probably going to be on the road in the AFC Championship game, if not in the AFC divisional round. So they're going to have to do some road winning in the playoffs, which scares me a little bit. But love the coach, like the quarterback's moxie, like the defense, like the offensive line, like the playmakers. I think everybody I know who knows me knows I'm not an Odell cheerleader, but I think this could be a very good year for Odell. I really like everything the Browns are doing. I think Clowney will have a good year, not a great year, but a good year after his 0 sack year. Putting him opposite Myles Garrett means he's going to get back to his Texans days opposite J.J. Watt when he's getting single man coverage instead of double team. I just like everything they did, honestly. I just think it's a really good team with a really good coach, some swagger to them, and a lot to prove. I think I won't be surprised if they're one of the last two standing in the AFC.
Yeah, great move to bring in both John Johnson and Troy Hill to that secondary. You get the break by getting the kid from Notre Dame in the second round.
Jeremiah Caboso.
You got to keep those guys healthy in the secondary, though. That includes Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit. They've got to stay healthy. You don't want to play the Chiefs and have those guys out again. So that's important. If that happens, you mentioned Clowney, then the defense is a lot better than it was, because that's what held them back last year, was the defense. And everything so far is sounding good about the camp that Donovan Peoples-Jones has had. If he can be a true difference maker, weapon on offense with Landry and Beckham, that also will open things up tremendously for them.
And shame on us, because I just talked about winning road football games, and I didn't mention, and you didn't mention, they have the best running back tandem in the NFL.
Oh, sure.
So we talk about best receiving tandems, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones or Kelsey and Hill. They have the best running back tandem in the NFL. And credit to those guys that they're able to be content with not, being the lead horse and sharing the responsibility. That's a credit to their personalities.
Odds to win?
15-1.
See, you're learning. 16. Just behind Baltimore. Next up is Pittsburgh. And what to expect from Ben Roethlisberger. The good news on offense is they've added 2 key rookies. Najee Harris is the big one at running back. Freiermuth, I'm a big fan of. And he's going to, I think, fit perfectly with Ben Roethlisberger, who loves his tight ends. I don't think the offense is going to be much of the problem, especially if they're able to run the ball a lot better this year, which has not been effective tool for them since Le'Veon Bell was there. The defense is also going to be strong because they've got those pass rushers. If they can keep Bush healthy, that'll be, of course, very important. This is look, they're not the undefeated team. They're also not the team that was as bad as they looked at the end of the season. But I don't think they're as far off as it appears they are. Odds-wise, and I'm already giving you a hint here, they're just kind of being majorly disrespected. I don't think things are that bad.
Look, everything went terrible for them. People forget they were 11-0 last year. The people forget that.
I know.
You're like, are they going to go undefeated?
Yeah.
And then everything fell apart, and they had the worst possible worst first quarter of a playoff game anyone has ever seen. Look, they're an aging team, right? And they never seem to be able to have enough money and salary cap to do anything. I think they are what they are. They'll probably make the playoffs as a wild card and lose the first round. I don't think they're a terrible team. I think they're probably a 10-7 team. Roethlisberger is the last one standing of the Roethlisberger, Eli, Rivers trio. I'd be surprised if he has a lot left in the tank. I think he could win you some games. I think he'll probably be almost like, a non-deciding factor in most of the games at this point in his career. So really it's about the defense and Devin Bush. Can he have a great year? Watt obviously is a superstar, but I think they're probably a 10-7 team who's going to struggle to score a lot of games. And the receiving core has too many drops.
Yeah, that's been an issue, no question about that too. But yeah, I think it's Roethlisberger. I think that if this was 10 years ago, Roethlisberger, this is a Super Bowl contender. But this is not the 10 years ago Roethlisberger. Odds to win, I've given you already a hint of how they're being disrespected.
50?
Yep, 50-1. And what in the world is Haskins doing on that team? I mean, what are they seeing this guy?
I mean, they see the fact that they don't have any.
Oh my Lord!
That the quarterback's 40. They see the fact they have a quarterback who's 40 years old, and they can't draft one right now. So you might as well have a young one on the roster just in case. Take a look at him for a year.
Oh,
you know how it is.
Yeah.
First round picks get many chances, unless you're Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, Buffalo, and this is the team everybody expects will knock off the Chiefs first. After breaking out last year, Josh Allen stepping up to elite status. We'll see if they've got the running game, though. That's what it is. They've got to be able to balance the offense. And Singletary struggled late last year in his second season, so now it's year 3. Moss, maybe he's ready to step up to be the number 1 guy, but they've got to run the football in the postseason. And the defense has got to be better. The defense took a step back last year. They were getting old, and there's still some old players on that defense. So they now need to count on some of their younger players, especially up front.
Yeah, look, they did a good thing to address. I don't think they addressed running back enough. They addressed pass rush sufficiently. Those were probably the 2 big things they didn't have in the playoffs last year. I think they did a good job addressing pass rusher. Both their top 2 picks, I think, are pass rushers. I thought Rousseau slipped too far in the draft just because he was a 1-year wonder. Well, that was a wonderful year.
Sure.
So,
Miami Dolphins are next. Are the Dolphins ready to take the next step and enter the playoffs?
Yes. That's what I would say. Yes. The AFC is so good, which is why you just saw me pause, that I'm like, are they one of the 7 best? Ugh, it's so tough. I think in the NFC they're a no doubt playoff team. The AFC is so good. I say yes. They're the second best team in their division. That usually gets you in. Obviously, they won 10 last year and didn't. Could their quarterback be Deshaun Watson at some point in this year? It could be. I just think it's a really good team. Not a great team, a really good team. I'm a little worried about Tua, but I keep coming back to, well, people loved Tua before he got hurt. Now he's 2 years removed, so he should be better. But that's putting a lot of blind faith in Tua. So my answer to that is yes, but with an asterisk that I'm not quite sure. I think they're the 7 seed in my mind.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on Tua yet. I need to see it, especially the deep game. It's funny. You watch even the preseason, and I just get a kick out of whenever I read somebody says, "Oh, so and so looked good." All right. Well, let me see. And then I look at it and I go, "I don't know what you're talking about." Okay, wow, he threw the ball 6 yards. He threw the ball 5 yards. He threw the ball 3 yards. That doesn't mean anything. So I want to see when the defense is game planning Tua, can he accurately throw the ball down the field? And until I see that, then I'm not going to be sold. And also the offensive line for the Dolphins is still a big question mark on whether or not they're going to be able to, maintain and keep Tua healthy. Gaskin, he looked great in the preseason. Does that translate? And the defense was really big for them last year. Tons of big plays and turnovers. And Van Ginkel, maybe he's a breakout star because he broke out in a nice way last year from nowhere status to, hey, keep an eye on this guy. So we'll see. I think that definitely they're going to be down there at the end like last year, but I can't put them into a serious contender until I know for sure that Tua is the guy. Odds?
Yeah. 40.
You hit it on the number. 40. Patriots are next. Cam Newton is gone. See ya. And Mac Jones, this is his team. So you talk about how COVID can interrupt the locker room. Well, there you go. Because, and it wasn't necessarily about COVID. What it was about the leadership. And the only reason that Cam was the quarterback was because he was a leader and he was respected. And that's why Belichick wanted him there over Mac Jones. And as soon as that leadership went out the window, Cam Newton was kicked to the curb. So I like it. This now says to me what I thought the Patriots should do all along. And this should be building for the future and surrounding Mac Jones with some good talent here. Great offensive line. That's going to help his growth. I think this is a borderline 500, wildcard team.
I think the Patriots, so let me tell you what I think. I wasn't at either of these joint practices, but I know Giants reporters who tell me the Patriots were a far superior team on those 2 days. And I know Eagles reporters who tell me the Patriots were a far inferior team on those 2 days. It's just 2 days and 4 days total, so it doesn't mean a ton. But that tells me it's a kind of an inconsistent team. Look, they spent like $300 million in free agency. They used a first-round draft pick on a quarterback for the first time ever. They're starting a rookie quarterback Belichick is starting a rookie quarterback for the first time ever. They're doing everything different than they've ever done before. So, when you've had as much success as they have, that's not usually a good idea. But to me, they're the third best team. I don't think they're as good as the Dolphins. I think it's going to be a disappointment because I think when you've spent as much, done as much to change as they have, I think people in New England especially are expecting an 11-win team. I don't think they expect to beat the Bills. They're realistic fans. But I think they're expecting an 11-win team, and I think they're looking at an 8-win team.
Okay. Odds?
40?
30-1. It's a little low. I didn't expect them to be better than the Colts and on par with the Chargers, to tell you the truth. All right. And then we wrap it up with the Jets.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, I did. What can I say? So, yeah, look, for me with the Jets, it's also about the offensive line. And I haven't seen it this preseason because Vera Tucker hasn't played. So the offensive line, when they line up week 1, will be better than it was, sort of like Jacksonville. It'll be better. So I'm not sure what to expect until I see it for real. Very pleased with what I've seen from Zach Wilson. So whether he becomes, at a certain level this year, next year, whatever, he'll get there. So I'm not worried about that. The defense loses a big player. There's no doubt. And that's just a major blow when you lose Lawson. They still have a lot of talent up front, though. That was their primary mission. They bring Shaq Lawson in, which I think was a good move. And by the way, I also think it was a shrewd move by Douglas to get a 4th-round pick for Herndon. How often do you get the same value that you drafted a guy at who hasn't done anything? So I think they got a steal by getting a 4th-rounder for Herndon. It's the secondary's young, but it's talented. And C.J. Mosley is a difference maker. So, look, the Jets won a couple of games last year. I think it's like you thought with Jacksonville, same thing. They'll be like a 5 or 6 win type team, and that's about it. But they're not going to be anywhere near as bad as they were last year.
A couple things. One, I went to probably 8-10 Jets practices this year. Carl Lawson, I've said this to you before, was the most dominant player on a training camp field I've ever seen. Yep. So his loss, you cannot understate it. I was dying to see how good he could be on the field. If it was just a practice thing or if it was ready to break, if this what it looks like when a player is ready to break out. It's a shame he won't be there. And it's not just him. Their front 7 has been hammered, right? Quinn and Williams has barely practiced all training camp. His foot injury lasted longer than expected. Jared Davis is out 2 months. And Vinny Curry had to basically retire for a year because of a blood disorder. So they lost a lot of the free agents they brought in to make the front 7 better. And yet still that's the strength of the defense, which tells you how much of a question mark cornerback is. I mean, you're trusting Bless Austin and Bryce Hall, 2 guys who should have been high draft picks, got injured in college, and really haven't done anything in the NFL. So it's a big gamble there in a system that relies on good cornerbacks. It's a big gamble. I really like everything I've seen about Zach Wilson, and really that if you're a Jets fan, that's all that matters. Whether you have 4 wins or 6 wins doesn't matter. It's tell me, do you think Chargers fans care that they won 6 games last year? No, they care that Justin Herbert's the answer. Right. And so that's really what it matters. I like everything I've seen out of Wilson. I think the Jets will be bad because of injuries. I think they'll be worse than they could have been. But I think Wilson has shown you everything to think this guy could be pretty good.
Yeah, and they are definitely coaching wise, the way everybody's bought in from the front office down. I think that's huge when it comes to being able to stay together and fight. And when the chips are down and all that stuff, and that's going to help them. But yeah, they can't afford any more injuries, any more major injuries. Becton and his head injury. I mean, they just can't afford it. They're not that talented. Yeah. So if they have any more of those types of injuries, it's a much longer season than they had hoped. And that's why you said that because, first thing, I don't watch Mike, Greenberg much, but he's already crying like, oh, the season's over. We lost Carl Lawson. It's like, season's over. I said the only way the season's over for the Jets is if you lose Zach Wilson. That's it. I don't care who else gets hurt. He has to play 17 games, and I don't care what happens. So that has nothing to do with anything. It just shows that he's just, he's one of those woe is me Jet fans that everything goes wrong. But yeah, as long as Zach Wilson plays and if he can perform the way Herbert did, I mean, that's all you can ask for as a Jet fan.
Yep.
Odds?
125 to 1.
150, just like the Bengals. And Houston, did I tell you the Houston odds?
200 to 1.
300. Okay. So they're 50 better than the Lions. So they're the worst team. All right, Ryan. So next week we start it all. We'll take a look at everything else gearing up for the beginning of the season, including that Thursday night game. We'll have our picks, our season picks, our week 1 picks, and so much more. So I'm looking forward to that, Ryan. I appreciate it. And go Rutgers. You don't have anything to say about that?
I can't say that. No, certainly, I mean, it'd be interesting to watch the game tonight.
Tomorrow night. No, yeah, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
I wish it was tonight, but all right. Take care, Ryan.